This is a special edition of Charlie Rose.
We have come to Damascus, Syria for a conversation with the president at a time that he seeks for his country to play a more prominent role in the region. Bashar al Assad came to power in Syria in 2000 after the death of his father. Today, he is putting Syria back on the map after a period of isolation. The region's leaders, it is said, are all showing up in Damascus to talk to him and to do business. He has strengthened ties with Turkey, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Lebanon, and also with Russia and Qatar. The United States and Syria are having real conversations about engagement. Senator John Kerry, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, was here this weekend for an unofficial visit. We have come back to Damascus to talk to President al-Assad about how he sees Syria and its role in the world, its region, the Middle East peace process, and his relationships with Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, and others. Most importantly, we come to talk about Syria and the United States and the possibilities for engagement between the two countries. Mr. President, thank you very much for allowing me to come here for another conversation with you. It was in 2006 that I was here, and I'm pleased to be back in 2010 to this great city, Damascus, the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world.
You're most welcome, Syria. I'm very glad to receive you today in Damascus.
I'm not the only American who's been here recently. Senator John Kerry, the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, was here on Saturday and recently as well. Is something happening in the relationship between Syria and the United States?
After President Obama came to power, there's some improvement, at least in the atmosphere. I wouldn't say there are a lot of concrete things happening. It's moving forward slowly. But the main interest of this administration now and the visit of Senator Kerry is about how can we relaunch the peace process. President Obama is interested in the peace process in general, but the talk with Senator Kerry was about the Syrian track. And I think the crux of the problems in this region is the lack of peace.
It is also said that he came here in a sense as an emissary of the president.
That's true.
What is it you want to say to the President of the United States about your view of the region, your own strategic sense of what's possible?
If I'm going to talk about the region, and you know this region is the heart of the world geographically and politically, you have to talk about the role of the great powers, and first of all, the United States. I think the main issue in this region is the occupation. When you talk about conflict, you have to go to the reason. The reason we have conflict that we have occupied land. At the same time, you have Security Council resolutions that mention very clearly the need of Israel to withdraw from this land. So this is where the peace starts. I think if I'm going to talk to him, I'll explain to him all the details in elaboration, but I will urge him to move faster in order to reach peace in the region.
But you have said in an interview recently with an Italian newspaper that you have a strategic vision, but it seems that America is engaged in a trial and error. What did you mean?
We are wondering about what strategy the United States have toward the different conflicts, whether Iraq, Afghanistan, peace process, and any other main conflict. But I'm talking about different administrations, not only this administration. The question that we ask to many officials, what's your strategy? They only put the title of stability, but stability is the final end, is the goal of all, the final stage or the final end of solving all the other problems. So the United States administration have been failing in still solving the problems. Why? And this is linked and related to what I said, that the region has changed. they have to adopt different approach to toward our region. They cannot adopt the same approach.
But with respect to U.S. Syria, what would you like to see the United States do?
In the peace process?
In the relationship with Syria?
Of course, if you cannot separate the two things, because if they want to play the role of the arbiter, they cannot play that role while they are sided with the Israeli. They have to be impartial arbiter. They're not, and they were never impartial arbiter since the beginning of the peace process. They have to gain the trust of the different player. If you don't have good relation with Syria, how can Syria depends on you as arbiter? So you have to improve the relation. So I told the American official that we have to start from improving the relations. If you talk about putting Syria on the terrorism act, right. Terrorism list.
Right.
You have the Syrian Accountability Act in the Congress.
Right, right. Which they just reconfirmed.
Yeah, exactly.
With some modification.
Yeah. There was the veto of Syria joining the WTO, right. But it was lifted recently. So that's why I said there are some improvements, but they are still very little. You have a long way to go in that regard. So I would like the United States to be fair and to be unbiased in order to achieve.
Senator Kerry has said that Syria is a high priority for this administration.
Yeah.
Have they convinced you of that?
We are waiting for the results. So without the result, I trust Senator Kerry, to start with this word. I trust Senator Kerry, and I think he's genuine. And I met him 5 times. It's not the first meeting or the second meeting. I met him 5 times in very difficult circumstances. So what he said, he said what he means. But at the end, he's not the one who's going to implement. You have the administration, and you have the Congress. Anyone could put obstacles. So at the end, we are looking for the results. Till today, I'm convinced about what he said, but I'm convinced that President Obama wants to do something positive in that regard. But I'm not convinced that the institution will allow President Obama to do what he wants to do with Syria and in other subjects and issues.
You seem to be saying that President Obama has the right ideas, but you're not sure that he can act on them.
Not because he cannot, because you have institutions in the United States. You have your political system. It's not only the president. If it's only the president, we could blame the president. We say that he didn't do what he has to do. But you have the institutions and you have the Congress. For example, the ambassador to Syria. He was about to come, but the Congress, the Republican in the Congress, opposed it recently. So the president has to stop. So that's why I said it's not that the president doesn't want to or he cannot do something. It's about the whole political system that you have in the United States, and you know more than me about it. So
but you considered it an act of respect for Syria that they confirm a Syrian ambassador from the United States?
Yeah. Hey, but at the end, the ambassador is to help your country, not to help my country. I have my ambassador in the United States. So this is not a help to Syria. This is a help to the United States if they have ambassadors anywhere in the world. So I'm not saying that this is something to deliver to Syria, but I'm just giving an example about a step he wanted to take to improve the relation, but somebody opposed it because of the political system that you have. That's what I mean.
Yeah. How do you see Syria, Turkey, Iraq, Iran, the northern tier in the region?
Turkey, Iran, Iraq. Normally, you should have good relation with your neighbors. Something we've learned from our experience during the last decades. We've been in conflict, Syria and Iraq, Syria and Turkey, Iraq and Turkey, and other countries. What did we get? Nothing. We've been losing for decades. We've learned during the last decade that we have to turn the tide. So everybody is going for a good relation with the other, even if he doesn't have the same vision, or even if they disagree about most of the things, not some things. So this relation, Syria, Iraq, we are neighbors. Syria, Turkey, we are neighbors. We'll affect each other directly. Iran is not my neighbor, but at the end, Iran is one of the big countries in the Middle East, and it's an important country, and it plays a role and affect different issues in the region. So if you want to play a role and help yourself and save your interest, you should have good relation with all these influential countries. That's why this relation, I think, is very normal.
There are those in America would like to believe America can do something that will put some distance between you and Iran, that they can make you less close?
They contradict themselves. They talk about stability in the region. Stability starts with good relation. You cannot have stability and have bad relation. This is first. Second, what's their argument? Why do they need Syria to be away from Iran? If they have conflict with Iran, well, so what does mean to put Syria away from Iran? Sometimes they talk about the relation between Syrian and Iranian relation and the peace. That's not true. It's not realistic because Iran supported our efforts to achieve, to get back our land through the peace negotiations in 2008 when we had indirect negotiations in Turkey.
Let me underline that. You believe that Iran, even though it says it does not recognize Israel's right to exist, when you, through Turkey, were trying to negotiate with the Israelis, the Iranians were supportive of that.
Exactly.
And so you're saying actions speak louder than words.
Exactly. That's what I mean. And actually they said it in words. They said publicly that we support Syria. So they said it twice during the negotiations and formally. So you cannot see with one eye.
Yes.
So that's what's happening in the West. They see only what they want to, they hear what they want to hear, and they ignore the other stand from the same government.
Do you think America misunderstands Iran?
They misunderstand the region, definitely. And that's sometimes normal because it's different culture, very far from here. But at the end, after the 11th of September, at least after the 11th of September, you should learn more about what's happening behind the ocean. It's not about what you think, it's about what we think. They have to understand the society, the culture in this region, and in the rest of the world, but this region, because it's complicated, more than before.
What is it they don't understand, those in Washington, about the region, about the culture, about Syria's role, about Iran?
They don't understand that we want peace. But if you want peace, doesn't mean to, if you want to sign a peace treaty, doesn't mean that we accept to sign capitulation agreement. That's what they don't understand. There's a big difference between capitulation agreement, that's I'm talking about the perception in our region, how we see it, and peace treaty. Peace treaty means having all your rights back. This is first. Second, about Iran, the nuclear issue, or the nuclear fight. It's about Iran having the right to have peaceful nuclear reactor. You cannot deal with Iran through the Security Council, through threats. And the evidence that they didn't understand is the recent agreement between Turkey, Brazil, and Iran. And I told the official that I met recently from Europe after that agreement, that this agreement is the proof that the West didn't understand this region, because Turkey and Brazil succeeded in getting what the world has been asking for during the last year in a few weeks, because they understand this region and they adopted different approach, which is dialogue, not threat, not imposing.
Their interpretation of what happened between Iran and Turkey and Iran and Brazil is that it's just another effort by Iran to delay sanctions
With
so
this
that
agreement,
they can get on with building a nuclear capacity.
You mean about the 1,200 kilogram?
Yeah.
No, about the agreement. Yeah. Actually, not
I
Iran.
think the agreement was intended to delay sanctions and nothing more.
Iran didn't talk about sending or making agreement, sending uranium abroad. The 5 countries plus 1 asked for this, and that's what Iran did. So they talked about it. You can keep saying that whatever we do, whatever Iran does, you have suspicion about Iran. But the international relation is not about trusting. It's about mechanism. You have mechanism. And this mechanism is in the agency, EAIA agency, and you have the NPT treaty, non-proliferative treaty, non-proliferation treaty.
Right.
That's what you can depend, not the trust. You don't have to trust. Trust is something personal. While if you talk about the relation, international relation, it's about mechanism, and you have the mechanism. So whether you trust Iran or doesn't trust it, this is not the issue.
But it is the issue that if Iran had nuclear ability for a nuclear weapon, it would destabilize the region.
That's why you need the mechanism of the EAIA. that their role is to make sure that this is civil, not military program.
But they say that the Iranians have misled them. The IAEA says Iran has misled us and did not give us the information we needed.
That happened when they moved the file from the EAIA to the Security Council. But before that, at the very beginning of the issue, we remember that there was cameras by the EAIA was set up inside the nuclear reactors. So when the problem started politically because of Bush's intention, the bad intention toward Iran, this is where the problem started. Now I think they have to do two things. To take it away from the Security Council, because if you threat Iran, if you take any action against Iran, there will be no solution. I think it's going to be more.
In other words, if the Security Council imposes sanctions, you think what?
Iran said publicly a few days ago that if they don't accept this agreement and they go to the Security Council, they will withdraw from the agreement. And if they withdraw from the agreement, this means the problem will be more complicated, and that means there will be no solution.
So therefore, we should be supportive, not engage in sanctions from the UN Security Council, and be supportive of the agreement between Iran and Brazil and Iran and Turkey.
And that's what I meant by going back to the agency.
Mr. President, do you believe Iran wants nuclear weapons?
No.
You don't?
No.
Why not?
Because what do you do when you have nuclear bomb? What, can you use it? You cannot. Is it deterrent? No, it's not.
Is that what they've said to you?
Yeah, definitely.
President Ahmadinejad says to you, the president of Syria, I do not want nuclear weapons.
Every official in Iran said that.
And you believe them?
Of course I believe, because what to do with it? They cannot, I mean, what they aim to have it.
Then why are they engaged in sort of, in the appearance of some, the IAEA, deception? And they discover these centrifuges in inside mountains that they didn't know about.
No, it's not deception. That's how you define it in the West. Actually, the 5+1 country didn't come to Iran with a good intention. They started with saying, you have to stop your program. I have the right to have civil program. Why to stop it? You say we are suspicious. Doesn't matter if you're suspicious or not. What's the mechanism? You should adopt the EAIA. They started making political pressure, and this is where the problem started. Not because Iran started to deceive. If they wanted to deceive, they wouldn't have allowed them to have cameras inside the reactors at the very beginning.
But you do believe that if Iran had a nuclear weapon, it would destabilize the region?
We are against any nuclear weapons in the region. We have a Syrian draft in the Security Council since 2003 about freeing the Middle East from any WMD, of course, including Israel. But we cannot talk about Iran destabilizing the region if we presume that they're going to have nuclear bomb, something I don't believe in, while ignoring Israel. Israel started this problem first. Israel is the only country who has nuclear bomb in the region, not Iran.
If Israel has nuclear weapons, everybody else has not rushed in to have nuclear weapons in the region.
I don't know, but I mean, when you have action, you'll have reaction. But in Syria, we don't believe that you should have nuclear weapons in order to deter Israel. Because I don't think it's easy for anyone to say that I'm going to use nuclear weapons.
If the United States says to you, we do not approve of your support of Hamas and especially Hezbollah, and we want you to reduce that level of support, what do you say?
What the reason? What their argument? They only want? Doesn't matter if they want. But the reason? How can they convince me that I should decrease the support? First of all, our support is political because Hamas, Palestinian organization, the Palestinians have occupied land. They have the right to have their own state. They don't have. They have the right to have their own land back after '67. Something they haven't had yet. The same for Hezbollah. The Israeli airplanes violating the airspace of Lebanon on daily basis, every few hours. Not every day, every few hours. So they have the right to defend their country. My answer, because they asked me that question many times, that instead of adopting this cherry-picking approach, once you talk about Hamas, once you talk about Hezbollah, while you have the elephant in the room. So let's talk about the peace. This elephant is the occupation and the Israeli aggression. When you don't have Israeli aggression, when you don't have occupation, forget about all these problems. It will be solved automatically.
But are you saying that if in fact there was an agreement between the Palestinians, if they were unified and there was an agreement, that you would be less supportive of Hezbollah and Hamas?
We support cause. What the code? The code that they have occupied land. If they don't have occupied land, what to support? I don't have anything to support. They have their own right. I support somebody who has a right, but he doesn't have, I mean, he has a right, but they don't give it back to him. So that's what we support. We support their cause. When they have a state, maybe they have another cause, that time we'll talk about something different. But today, we support their right to have their own independent state.
But you were saying you support Hezbollah and Hamas at the level you do because there is no Israeli-Palestinian agreement.
Israel should stop violating the airspace, should stop launching aggression from time to time against Lebanon or against Syria. That's their right. That's what we support.
The United States, it is said that Senator Kerry believes that you and Syria has supplied Scud missiles to Hezbollah.
This is very good story, anecdotal story by the Israelis. They are very good in making up.
So the story came from the Israelis, and is it true?
We told them, what evidence do you have? If you want to say that you have you smuggled, because they've been repeating this story from time to time, for years, not 4 months. And every time we said, you are scanning the borders between Syria and Lebanon every hour, for 24 hours. And you cannot catch any big missile, Scud or any other one. This is not realistic. This is Israeli allegations. These are false pretenses, mendacious statements. That's what we can call it, Israeli.
But my impression is that Senator Kerry came here on Saturday to say the United States believes this to be true. And the United States believes, according to its own intelligence sources, that weapons have gone, new Scud missiles have gone to Hezbollah from you.
We can only talk about this and discuss it with them when they came to us with the evidence. While to base your debate on rumors, you wasted the time. So say, do you have evidence or you only heard? Well, if it's you only heard, we don't have to waste our time. You have evidence, you said your intelligence, you said the Israeli intelligence, bring me the evidences, bring me the pictures, bring me all the information to discuss. While to tell me that we believe, this is your problem if you believe. I don't have to waste my time with what you believe or not. We know the reality here. Hezbollah is a strong organization, it's not weak at all. They have missiles, everybody knows.
Well, in fact, they have said that their missiles, they have better and more advanced missiles than they've had before.
How did they know? When Israel attacked Lebanon in 2006, they didn't know about the bunkers that they have in the south of Lebanon, just a few kilometers away from the Israeli forces. How could they know about the advancement that they have? These are rumors. They are afraid and worried about what Hezbollah is doing. Hezbollah, like any other organization, it's a war. When you have a war, everybody will make his position better and stronger. That's normal. But as a politician, we don't waste our time with condemning or blaming or saying that Hezbollah having this and having that. This is reality. You have this reality, you have to deal with it. How to deal with it? Go toward the peace. That's the solution. Not waste the time talking about what kind of missile and how many missiles. This is just a waste of time. Realistically, solve the problem through the peace process. That's why we are talking about peace and we are working for peace in order to solve all these problems. And Israel should know only peace can protect Israel, not creating this propaganda and making up false stories or delusive stories.
If Senator Kerry suggested that he believes and the United States believes that you were supplying weapons to Hezbollah, new Scud missiles, you are saying absolutely not, we are not doing that.
I said no, but at the same time, I told him we don't waste our time with this. When you have evidence, come to me. If they have evidence, we can discuss, but we don't discuss it.
Do you think it would be the wrong thing to do, that it would be destabilizing to do that, supply weapons to Hezbollah?
I think what's destabilizing the Israeli aggression on our region. They attacked Syria many times, they attacked Lebanon, they've been attacking the the Palestinians on daily basis. That's what destabilized the region. They don't withdraw from the occupied land. That's what destabilized the region, not Hezbollah and any other organization that they defend themselves.
If the United States comes to you and says, you know, we want to do things in the region, we want to be a positive force, and we're prepared to do this, we're prepared to encourage Israel to do this, and we ask you to stop being so supportive of Hezbollah and Hamas, because we believe that they're engaged in in certain terrorist activities. We ask you to stop supporting them. You are saying that's not going to happen.
It's like if you talk about a chapter in a book. You tell me, read that chapter. I have to read the whole book to understand this chapter. So the main title is the peace. I would say, of course, we'll be ready to we would like to see this region free of armaments, free of conflicts, free of everything. But that will not happen only through talking about one factor, while you have the main important factor, which is the occupation is in place. So you have to solve it as a package. And this package should be peace. There's no other way. It's just a waste of time. So we have to go in this way, through the peace.
There is this whole sense of Syria and its identification and its relationship to the aforementioned Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, that it's part of this resistance that gives Syria power and legitimacy.
You can have this legitimacy as long as you adhere to your rights and to your principles. That's that's the political legitimacy that you can have. While supporting the resistance, they have the public support anyway, whether we support it as a government or not. They have the support of the public in this region. That's why they are strong, not by the governments, actually.
Some find it interesting that your allies are Islamist, in one case a theocracy, and yet Syria is a secular state.
That's true. And that's what they don't understand. This is one of the things that they don't understand in the West, especially in the United States. Because if I support you, doesn't mean I'm like you, or I agree with you. That means I believe in your cause. That's the difference. Maybe if we don't have this cause, maybe we have different debate with them or different relation. While now they have a cause and we support the cause. We don't support organization. We support the Palestinian cause, and Hamas is working for that cause, and the same for Hezbollah. Hezbollah is working for the Lebanese cause. So we support that cause, not Hezbollah. But Hezbollah is one of the means. So that's what they have to understand in the West.
Speaking of Lebanon and Hezbollah, the withdrawal of Syrian troops from Lebanon. Tell me how you felt about that.
At that time, of course, it wasn't, let's say, positive feeling, I'll put it in that word, because of the reaction in Lebanon after the assassination of al-Hariri when they accused Syria. Today, the atmosphere is different. We were very cooperative with the different delegation that came for the investigations of the Hariri assassination, and it was proven today that there's nothing to do with Syria, and that changed the atmosphere.
The investigation is not over, or it has not been.
No, not over. But from the very beginning, we were very sure about that. But now the Lebanese people know this reality that Syria has nothing to do with this assassination. At the end, Syria's influence in Lebanon has always been strong because of the geopolitical position. It's not because of the army. The army in Lebanon didn't do anything, wasn't involved in politics. Few politicians, few officers in Syria used to be involved. So the Syrian influence and the Syrian clout still as strong as it was. So we don't have problem. And we don't look at it as to undermine Syria.
So you do not feel like you need to reintroduce Syrian troops to Lebanon? At all.
Actually, we had been withdrawing our troops before the conflict since 2000.
So you want no Syrian troops in Lebanon?
We withdrew 63% of our troops before the conflict started in Lebanon. So that was our intention.
Mr. Hariri, the Prime Minister, has been here a number of times.
Yeah.
You have a very good relationship. You've exchanged ambassadors.
Yeah.
What do you say to him about his father when he comes?
The first meeting I told him, you have to be as frank as you can. Yes. Even if you think that we were behind the assassination. That's it. But we didn't talk about the issue.
Right.
That was sorry, I mixed, yeah.
You basically said, you've got to be frank and tell me what you think, even if you think that Syria was behind the Hariri assassination.
If you want to build the relation, we have to be fully frank with each other.
The relationship with Turkey is very good. Turkey was serving as an intermediary between negotiations between you and the Israelis.
Yeah.
It came that close, in which you would get back the Golan Heights, yes?
So this is very important. What we have now as a reference is mainly the United Nations or Security Council resolution. It's a very important reference, but it's not defined. It talks about the land occupied in '67, but how can you define this land? Israel is talking about different line. How can you define this line, I mean? We wanted in that negotiations to define the line through some points. And Israel wanted to define its security requirements. So if we define these two things and we move to the direct negotiations, whenever you have arbiter, this arbiter can play its role only through this paper. Not like what happened in the 90s when some politicians, some of them with a goodwill, spoiled the process with the goodwill, but with the enthusiasm, but less with the lack of knowledge, and others self-serving interest, politicians who spoil it for their own interest. Now, when you have this paper, anyone who wants to play a role, any mediator, any official, any arbiter, should play through this paper, and this is where you can succeed, not to have 19 wasteful years.
You're prepared to start those negotiations over?
Of course, we are ready. We don't think that it's time for peace. It's always time for peace. We don't say now time or it's not time for peace. It's always time for peace.
You broke the negotiations off because of the Gaza invasion.
Syria and Turkey, because Olmert deceived Prime Minister Erdogan. 4 days before the invasion, Prime Minister Erdogan called me on the phone, and Olmert was in the other room having dinner, and we started talking about the final details of that paper. And after 1 hour, or actually more than 1 hour of discussion with Prime Minister Erdogan and him discussing with Olmert, he told me, Prime Minister Olmert told Erdogan that I'm going back to Israel and I will let you know about my final answer in a few days. And the answer was attacking Gaza. That's where the Turks felt deceived, and we felt the same.
But you're prepared to start over?
Of course.
Through Turkey?
Through Turkey.
And is the goal a Syrian-Israeli agreement, or have you now said it has to be a larger agreement for the Middle East?
It has to be comprehensive. The Syrian-Israeli agreement could be important step, but it's not the final step, because there's big difference between talking about peace treaty and peace. Peace treaty is like permanent ceasefire if it's not comprehensive. There's no war. Maybe you have embassy, but you actually won't have trade, you won't have normal relation, because people will not be sympathetic to have this relation as long as they are sympathetic with the Palestinians, 500,000 who live in Syria and 500,000 in Lebanon, and another few millions in other Arab countries. So comprehensive peace on the Syrian, Lebanese and Palestinian track, this is going to be the real peace where you have normal relation. This is where we can bury the hatchet, not only to have peace treaty. So that's how we see it.
Do you think it will happen soon?
From our point of view, it could happen soon if we have another partner, because this is about me. Actually, the peace process is about two parties. Now, if you ask me, I'd say yes. But so today we don't have this partner. So far, till this moment, we don't have the partner.
You don't think Prime Minister Netanyahu wants to make a deal?
Again, it's not about him, it's about the whole government. Can he lead the government toward peace? Is he strong enough to lead this government toward peace? Because, you know, it's a coalition now. It's coalition. You're not, he doesn't have the majority to say, I'm going to, in that direction. So, in reality, nothing happened yet. So why to waste the time expecting? He's been for now in his position for a year and nearly a year and a half, something like this. And he couldn't do anything in peace. So I don't know if he has the will or he has the power. We don't know.
On the other side of the Palestinians, and they are not unified, there's Fatah, Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
Can they be unified?
Of course they can. If you help them, they can be unified. And they have to be unified. Without unification in the Palestinian arena, you cannot have peace. You need this unification. It's not about who's going to sign the treaty. At the end, if you want to implement the treaty, you need unification. You need unified Palestinians.
And what do you think the possibilities are that Hamas, if there is unification, will support a recognition of Israel and an agreement between the Palestinians so that they will no longer say,
yes,
we refuse the right of Israel to exist.
And they said that in a very clear way when they talked about two-state solution in Hamas.
So
And
Hamas is
and they
prepared to, but are they prepared to renounce their charter?
I wouldn't answer on their behalf. But what I know publicly now, that they talked about the two-state solution and they talked about the line of 67. What do you conclude? We can conclude that they are ready. But how? That's the question. Maybe in different way than what the authority is doing today. Maybe they have their own way.
Do you believe Israel wants peace?
I think people who elect such extremist government, they don't want peace. But at the Indian politics, I would say, let me see what's going to happen in reality. I don't believe, but that doesn't mean we have to stop working for peace. If I don't believe that they want peace, we have to help them in believe in peace. They have to learn that only peace can protect their country.
What is the biggest thing that's necessary to make a breakthrough in your judgment?
You should ask yourself what happened first. Occupation happened first, before the aggression, not vice versa. After in 48, after 48, 67, in different stages. So definitely, the one who occupied the land should withdraw, because my land is like my property. And if you have a thief who take your property, you don't make compromise. You tell him first, give me back my property, my good, my things. Then we can discuss any compromise. You don't discuss the compromise with the thief before having your things back to you. So that's how we see it. So the beginning is to end the occupation. Then you'll have stability, definitely.
But in the conversations, everything should be on the table and there should be no preconditions.
We don't have any conditions. There's only one condition, which is international condition, which is the Security Council resolution, on which the whole peace process based in 1991. So we don't have any conditions, but we have rights. And rights you don't discuss. It will go back.
Do you believe this region is going to a place where it does not need to look for solutions from the West?
In the past, we used to think that everything will happen in the West, and to be ready to be implemented here, then you'll have the solution ready, and you won't have any conflict. This is very delusive. Actually, the reality that you have to do your own job, but you need the support from the West. But if you don't have the support, we don't wait for the West. We're going to go to solve our problem. We're going to go forward to solve our problem, but we're not going to wait for the West. But if they support us, that will make the solution better and faster.
Let me focus again on the dynamic of this region.
Today you have Iran, you have Turkey, you have Syria, and you have Qatar. If you want to talk about the cooperation, for example, regarding the peace, we had a meeting in Istanbul, me and Erdogan and the Prince of Qatar. It was about the peace because Turkey and Qatar are partners with Syria in the peace issue. So you have different map regarding different issues. We had a meeting with Iran regarding defending our rights, regarding the Israeli aggression, regarding issue in Iraq. Regarding Iraq, there's cooperation between Syria, Turkey, and Iran. So you have different allies, but all of them in the same region. So this is the new dynamism that we have that depends on every subject.
And Russia, where does Russia fit in this?
I cannot tell now because this is the first visit by any president, Soviet or Russian, to Syria during the last 66 years since we started the relation with Russia. It seems to me that Russia is working to regain its own position, but in a different way. Not like the Cold War during the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I think in a new way, through having new allies, good relation, strong relation. After he left Syria, he went to Turkey. Exactly. They signed the 20 billion treaty that opened the borders between the two countries. Now, if you want to look at the space from our perspective, Syria, Turkey, then Turkey, Russia. So the strong relation between Russia and Turkey will influence directly and indirectly the relation between Syria and Russia, in parallel with the direct relation between Syria and Russia. So this is geographic space. You have to look at it as a map that will affect each other. What about the effect of this Russian relation recently? It's too early to judge. I don't know yet. Economically, it will definitely affect the region very, very soon. And the economy will affect the politics. How much? This is something we have to wait to see. But it will tell you about a new map being created and forged in this region, as you call it, new dynamism.
The United States has always believed that Syria did not do enough to prevent foreigners from coming through your border with Iraq, and that it was a huge issue for them.
Well, see, borders are not enveloped to be sealed. You can control, you can monitor, something like this. So they're not realistic. This is first. Second, they talked about Syria smuggling or helping terrorists to be smuggled inside Iraq. It's like shooting yourself in the foot, because when you help the terrorists in Iraq, they will attack you someday in Syria.
Exactly.
And it's known that Syria was the first country, maybe in the world, before all the Arab and the Middle Eastern countries, and before Europe definitely, and before the United States, that started fighting with the terrorists and the extremists in the 70s. And actually that started before, in the 50s, but it wasn't, I mean, the main conflict, and when we defeated them, was in the 70s and early 80s. So we're not that stupid to go and support terrorists anywhere in the world, because terrorists work like the internet. You cannot control them. They don't recognize border. If you have terrorists in Iraq, it's like having them in Syria. If you have them in Lebanon or in Turkey or in Jordan, it's like having them in Syria. So you cannot. This is not realistic. Second, helping terrorists, third, helping terrorists in Iraq means helping the chaos. And chaos is contagious. When you have chaos in Iraq, means you're going to have chaos in Syria. It's going to become more violent, more sectarian, division later, and this division is going to be like domino effect, will inflict the region from Morocco in the west till Indonesia in the east.
But so if I would talk to the Americans today, they would say to me, there were many things that you could have done that you didn't do. Yes, you can't close your border, but you allowed too many.
Now let me give you the other example. In 2004, or maybe 5, I'm not sure, a big delegation from the Pentagon, from the State Department, from the Army, and the intelligence came to Syria to ask for cooperation. And we told them, send us delegation to see what kind of cooperation we can have on the borders. They sent delegation. The delegation left Syria, and they didn't come back again. We had the same issue recently in the autumn, last autumn, when they asked for cooperation, and I said we are ready to have cooperation to control or to monitor the border in Iraq. Until today, we haven't received delegation. And I told Senator Kerry about this.
Do you think that the American withdrawal from Iraq will go well and on time?
This is not our debate. This is the wrong debate that has been circulating in the media during the last 2 years, especially in the United States, whether to leave or not to leave. Actually, the question is how to leave. How to leave with the political process. The answer will be through what political process are you going to launch and support in Iraq. Then when you leave, it's going to be better. The situation will be better. At that time, you can be committed. Now, any timetable, of course, we support the idea and the principle that the United States should leave Iraq. But that doesn't mean we'll make it better or worse. It's worse. It's going to be bad if you leave. So what we are worried about, if the United States is going to support or launch a good political process where they can reconcile all the Iraqis, then they will have a constitution and the new institutions, and this is where we're going to say thank you.
But I think they would like to have your help in doing that.
We are ready. We are helping the Iraqis now. We told the Iraqis we are ready for any help. But there's no dialogue or real dialogue between Syria and the United States regarding Iraq.
There is no dialogue between
Syria and the United States regarding Iraq. They only talk about borders, and they only talk about terrorists, because they deal with the terrorists like playing a game on the computer where you have terrorists and you have to shoot him. That's how they deal with the terrorist issue. They don't understand that terrorism fighting means having the atmosphere, the normal situation, fighting the chaos. You cannot fight the chaos while you have political anarchy. You should have normal government with the police, with the army, with the normal situation, normal political situation. This is where you don't have chaos. This is where terrorists fail. They cannot do anything.
So what is your big challenge today?
The biggest challenge is how can we keep our society as secular as it is today?
As secular?
Secular, the society, not the government. It is secular. You have diversity, very rich diversity in Syria we are proud of. But at the end, you're part of this region. You cannot stay isolated from the conflicts surrounding you. If you have sectarian Lebanon on our west and sectarian Iraq on our east, and you don't have the peace process solved on our southern border, and you have the terrorists dominating the region and let's say growing with leaps and bounds, you'll be affected someday. You'll pay the price. So it's not about being passive and say, I'm going to protect myself. How can you be active and expand what you have to the other? So the challenge is the extremism in this region.
But the extremism, some people believe, are those people who are never secular, who in fact find in religion a cause.
They always use religions to assume the mantle of religions or Islam or whatever in order to have followers. They only assume it. I don't think they are convinced about what they are doing. Some of them, they are ignorant, they believe, they think they are helping the religions this way. But at the end, it's not about those, it's about the others. How can they influence? Because, I mean, you always have extremists in everything, in politics, in religions, in Christianity, in Islam, in Judaism. In every religion, you will have extremism. But it's about how much can they influence the society. As long as you have open-minded people, you don't worry about those. They're going to be isolated. So I'm not worried about what mantle they assume to convince the other. I'm worried about how much the other can protect themselves from them.
But as I listen to you say that, it seems an incongruity between saying that and looking at who you have great relations with and who you support in the region.
That's why I said it's not about who's like you and who's not. This first, it's about the cause. They have cause, they have support, and this is first. Second, they're not extremists. But if you mean Hamas,
Hezbollah is not extremist.
no, it's not.
What is it?
They support peace. If you want peace, they support peace. They believe in Islam as to be the government in their country. This is their freedom this is. I mean, they are free to think whatever they want, but they never try to implement it by force. This is where you cannot label them as extremists. The extremist wants to force you to go in a certain way, and sometimes they threat you, and sometimes they kill you. This is extremism. Not to have your idea. Your idea, of course, we're going to have different ideas, different currents, political currents, and religious currents. That's normal, and this is the diversity that we have. But they are not extremists because they never try to implement by force their doctrine.
If Israel would retreat to its 67 boundaries, would you encourage Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah to recognize their right to exist and reach a full agreement with them?
If you talk about treaty, part of the treaty will be this recognition, and who signs the treaty are the governments. And when we talk about the peace, we talk about Syrian track, Lebanese track, means Syrian and Lebanese governments, and Palestinian track, Palestinian government. When the governments recognize Israel, and Israel is committed to the treaty, I think the whole mood, the whole atmosphere on the popular level will change. So everybody will go in that direction. But the recognition that you are talking about will come from the government, not from the people. The people will reflect their recognition by normal relation, by trade, by tourism, as I said, and any other kind of relation. If Israel is committed, I'm sure the people will be very positive in that direction. That takes time. To be realistic, that will not happen overnight. Conflict for 60 years, a treaty is not enough to change it overnight. It takes time, it needs procedures. You start building the trust after that treaty. So how to build the trust, that will take time. But I'm sure that this normal relation will be dominating between Israel and the neighboring countries. There's no doubt about this. Whether Hezbollah, Hamas, or any other one. At the end, they are organization, they have people, they have grassroots. The grassroots part of this society will be affected. So of course it will. And we will encourage, of course we will encourage. Because we always ask for peace.
People say, and this is about you,
Yeah.
in the beginning, when you took over the presidency, you were your father's son. That today you have emerged as your own person. Do you feel that?
In my house, I'm the son of my father. But in this position, from the very first time, I should be the president who has taken the responsibility of everything. And if I were the son of my father in the way they mean it, I wouldn't have succeeded in dealing with the very difficult circumstances. So I wouldn't look at myself in either way. I look at myself as somebody who's in responsibility, who did what he's convinced about, and he's convinced that this is for the sake of his people. That's
Do you believe you have consolidated your power so that you can take more risks now?
No, I didn't consolidate my power. I have more support by the public. That's what I have during the last few years.
And how do you think you gained that?
I think because they believe that I work according to a national agenda. That doesn't mean I was fully right. I made mistakes. But if you made mistakes according to a goodwill and based on national agenda, nobody will blame you. They will support you because you're human. You're going to do mistakes. So that's how I gain it. Because I said every decision we have to take should be 100% Syrian, not 90%, 100% Syrian. And that's what we did. And that's how I gained the support of the people. That doesn't mean they agree with me in everything. Support is different from agreeing with. They don't agree, we disagree about different issues. But the support means the trust. Even if you go toward peace, when we started the negotiations in Turkey, doesn't mean everybody supported that negotiation. Maybe the style, maybe the way, maybe the timing. You have different point of views. But at the end, they trusted you that you are going for a good thing, whether you fail or not, but at the end you have goodwill, and they trust you. That's how you get it.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Pleasure to see you in Damascus. Thank you very much, as always.
Thank you.